Welcome back to the Obojima Podcast. My name is Jeremiah, and I am with Ari and Adam, and we are the writers of Obojima, and we are talking about awakened animals in our world, because something we haven't discussed, a plot hole, one might say, that we are going to fix right now.
It's a mystery more than a plot hole.
Mystery, one might say, is that there are a ton of awakened creatures in Obojima, but we've also claimed that most people in Obojima can't cast high-level magic. And the spell awaken, I don't think it's past tense. The spell awaken is 5th level magic. So how are all these Obojimans, or how is Obojima, the island, bringing all of these animals to sentience, they have sentience, to higher sentience, And that's the discussion today. We're gonna expand on the world. This is not, this is just for us to know as writers. Maybe a portion of it gets into the book, but really, I think it's for us to develop the space and figure out some of these things. And if we run out of things to talk about, we'll jump into another topic.
Yeah, I mean, the question we have to answer is, so you're talking about a level of spell that if somebody if a wizard were to cast it, or a mage were to cast it, this is what level they would have to be to do that. But what we're actually looking at is the effect of having a creature that is of human level intelligence.
Yeah.
And so how does that happen? It doesn't have to be with a spell. It could just be that they have this intelligence. So how did that happen? So the island itself can do it randomly. It might be that here's a bunch of squirrels and one of them is just awakened. It just happens spontaneously. It also could be, we talked about the idea that there might be spirits that have this ambient ability that, they might kind of move through the world, and as they do, creatures around them become spontaneously awaken.
Could be the effect of animals in elder domains of spirits.
Right. That could also be a thing. Mm-hmm. It could be that there might be this kind of traveling spirit that goes around and has this cane, and when they,
a Tom Bombadil of spirits that's just hey,
you there.
You look nice.
Yeah, so there could be a variety of things that cause that to happen. Or, I think you had the idea of it also could be something that is, if a creature is, maybe something is added to their food or something like that, or given something that it could... Mm-hmm. Something that allows them to awaken.
Mystic kibble.
Mystic kibble.
Don't eat the mystic kibble unless you want your cat to
absolutely
start talking.
Love a Tom Bombadil type character sitting in a bar and being like, I need something done. And he turns and looks at a crow and is like, the crow all of a sudden is like, oh my God, I'm a person now. And he's like, go do something for me and have at it.
It can even be fun where it's not a thing that character activates. It's just when they talk to a crow, the crow can then respond. It just becomes,
instantly,
instantly, just through the act of being addressed by this figure. That's a very powerful figure.
That is a very powerful figure.
Which is kind of cool. It could be, but Tom Bombadil, obviously, super powerful, but also not really interested in what's going on in the world. And also kind of absent-minded in certain ways and stuff. But, there's something to that of just, that adds, what is the thing that's going to add to the feel of Obojima?
Yeah.
And something like that. Now that enhances it, as opposed to that's weird that these things exist here in great numbers.
And I think we were saying too, the way that every so often a human family has an elf child. Mm-hmm. It could be just the same kind of thing with sentient animals that, every now and then, a hawk just suddenly is hatched and just realizes whoa, I can think and speak and I can read, and it lives a hawk life. But
I have algebra.
Yeah, I know kung fu.
Comes with anxiety immediately too.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
The hawk's sitting there looking at all of his other hatchlings. It's like, I got to get a job.
Yeah. Look at these guys. Eating worms.
Yeah.
What the
It's
heck?
the only implication of sentience.
I need to offer to society.
I'm not being productive.
I need to. Capitalism is calling.
Just yeah. But yeah, the Obojima, because Obojima is magical place. It could just there could be a character that's walking around waking up animals, and then there could naturally occur, just like every now and then a sentient, like, lynx cub is born, and that just happens.
Do you think that when we see an awakened creature, or a creature that we can communicate, like we would be with other humanoids, do you think that creature is awakened permanently? Like they are awakened, or is it like for a while they are like this, and then at some point they will kind of recede back into their animal level intelligence? Like what I mean is, if a creature walks into the domain of this elder spirit, and they become awakened, I'm almost thinking of like in Mononoke, they were talking about how the spirits of the forest are diminishing, especially as like humans are encroaching on it. But they, I forgot who said it in it, but they were basically lamenting the fact that spirits they're turning into dumb beasts. That these creatures, like the boars, were turning into dumb beasts. Yeah. And is there this might be just another way to think about it too, that the awakened spirits or awakened animals that you see might be awakened at that moment. Yeah. And it might be a temporary thing. It might be something that has triggered that at that time, and it's not permanent.
It could be that permanence in this type of magic is rare.
Right.
Or is something, it's something you have to consistently do. Like every year, I take my pet cat to the domain of the spirit, and I give an offering, and I take it to cat college, where it's like, I'm going to drop Snuffles off in this place, and it's going to live within this domain for 6 months, and I'm going to come back, and when Snuffles return, I'm going to bring an offering for its time that this cat spent with the spirit, and thank it, and leave this offering at the shrine, and then Snuffles, who's now got his degree, comes back and helps me
do something around the house.
Helps me run the tea shop that my mom, my mom's too sick, so I need to do this with my cat. And that's interesting. That creates a culture where it's like, if there is a spirit domain that can do this, it creates. And this is kind of going back to our discussion on when we build an elder spirit. How do the villages and towns around it, how does that spirit's presence affect the culture in the area?
I mean, that's interesting, because it could say that, awakened spirits, it kind of imply that somewhere close by there's an elder spirit that is living. And if that elder spirit was to move, then these awakened spirits might slowly just lose sentience and then just return like back to their normal animal, nature. I'm also thinking like Kiki's Delivery Service,
right.
The cat, like sort of loses it for a moment.
I think there should be all streams travel to the ocean. I think there should be many ways for us to get to this position. So I think an elder spirit or someone like a Tom Bombadil type doing this, I think that occurs, but I think there has to be some other way that is more standardized. Because if I'm a young budding witch in Yataman who wants to get myself a vending machine, and I want to, my older brother did this and he awakened a cat, and now I'm going to follow in his footsteps, so I'm going to do it too. How do they awaken a cat? I feel like the average person who wants to awaken an animal, there has to be a service or some other way for these witches who are often making deals with awakened cats to do this. And maybe the whole sentience isn't permanent type thing. Maybe that's part of the deal, where it's like, if I go and awaken this cat, you're going to serve a time as like my guardian, but in return, I will give you sentience for 10 years or something like, and that's the contract that you make with this cat in some capacity. Because contract magic is another thing we haven't necessarily talked about, but we mentioned contracts.
How do you negotiate with the cat before it's awakened?
Well, I think what you do is you awaken it and you go, hey, you can leave, but this is going to fade in 6 months. I can consistently make this happen for you. And if you put your paw on this contract right here, you stamp your paw, and watch my vending machine for a year, I'll give you 3 more years of sentience or something like that. So how does a wizard or a witch or a druid or someone awaken that in Yadaman?
Mystic Kibble.
Or either you get Mystic Kibble from some witch
It's a
coven,
service.
or you actually have to quest. Like it's part of you have your vending machine and you're like, oh, okay, I need a guardian for this. And you have to quest to find the guardian, and you find a companion spirit who has a goal, and they're like, solve my goal and I'll guard your vending machine. It could be something
but
like
we
that.
specifically say awakened cat. So we're claiming that it's a beast that's
Yes.
been brought to this level of
Right, it's
sentience
not a
and not a
companion.
spirit.
Okay, I
Yeah.
see. Yeah.
So, we're saying animals, even with the badger that we had talked about, animals are being brought up to the sentient level of a human, the intelligence of a human. I say sentience over and over again. That's the wrong word. They're bringing up to a certain level of intelligence. They already have sentience. And so, in a place like Alman or a major city like Skykai, I would imagine there has to be some service, even if it's expensive or it's hard to deal with. There has to be something, like maybe there's a pool of water that these people go on Mount Nabora and bring the water back down and now sell it at a premium. And this water,
How common do you expect this to be? Like, is it more common to see an awakened? Like, are most people's pets awakened, or are most people's pets not, like just normal animals?
I would imagine it's common enough that if you saw a dog as your server at a restaurant, you wouldn't be like, that's weird. But it's also, I almost feel like it's something that professionals do. Like wizards and witches and service workers who need assistance might awaken their family pet to make this thing happen. But like the average person who just has a pet for the reasons you'd have a pet, which is to have a companion, might not awaken it. Adventurers and explorers might awaken their pet because it's easier to keep them alive in the dangerous world. But like my house pet, unless I need him to work the tea shop, he's just my cat.
Yeah.
Or he's just my turtle.
It feels like that there are some witches on the island that specialize in it, and they have, maybe they don't, have through the traditional ways of like, I've got to be level, X level, a wizard to cast this spell. Maybe they've created like a potion, a naturally occurring potion, that if you give that to your cat or your dog or your badger or whatever, they will awaken, and then it lasts, X number of months or whatever, and you just kind of have to re-up. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like, that's their business, that's whoever sells this stuff, they're like, hey, we know the secret sauce, we know how to make this stuff, and that'll be, that's, everybody has to go there if they want to awaken a creature.
I kind of like the idea of them all being like hard candy makers. The people, you see the videos of them pulling these melted sugars, and like as they're doing it, they're enchanting the candy.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then it's like, oh yeah, you wrap it up, feed this to your dog once a month, and maybe you buy a year's supply, and then you run out. And that's also a fun magic item to find too.
That's cool.
Where it's like, oh, there's some awakening candy
with D12 number of things.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh man. And you could be, you could go to town and awaken 6 pigeons right away, or you could awaken one animal and it lasts for however long. I think that's really fun.
That's neat. I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. And just like it's also just worth noting, just in general terms, like you mentioned that, somebody might be able to cast a spell and not in the traditional way that like a character would. NPCs do not have to follow the same rules.
No.
When you're building an NPC, like they could have 3 hit points and know this one spell. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were talking earlier, and I had the thought of the croak of time stop. Like there's a frog that every time it croaks, it stops time. It's got this like 9th level spell.
It has a % chance of stopping time. Yeah.
So yeah,
it seems like there's a wide collection of a wide manner of options for people to choose from, or for an awakened animal to occur. And I like that it can happen in accident. in nature, which is like something that might happen to the badger character from a couple podcasts ago that has the swarm of raccoons and they're selling the vending machine and all that. Like that is a badger born into existence with awakened, with an intelligence of a human, and is like, well, I got to go figure out my life in this world.
Find my grift.
Compared to like a cat who for the first 7 years was just a cat, and then all of a sudden was like, oh my gosh, I'm really smart now, and I want to stay smart, so I'm going to make contracts that deals with people so I can stay smart.
Or maybe the cat is like, oh my gosh, I'm smart, I hate it. Like, how do I get back?
Aw.
Yeah.
How do I get back to just being
I don't want to work.
innocent?
You gave me this sapient quality,
Yeah.
and now you're making me work.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Self-aware.
Yeah, I used to just find a warm spot and curl up.
I had
and
no
love
problems.
Life.
I didn't worry about the future. I didn't regret the past. It's like, yeah. I mean, is the burden of intellect is a good story there.
And a story that I'm going to lead into the next topic is what if, and the topic is vending machines to let everyone know, but what if one of these awakened cats meets a group of people as they come to their vending machine, and rather than trying to make a sale, they say something to the effect of like, get me some of this awakening candy and I will give you all of the items in this vending machine. Like, I'm done with this wizard. I only have 2 candy, or she's like, I only have about 1 candy left. I only have a month.
Yeah.
He hasn't come back. He was supposed to deliver my awakening candy. I was supposed to get a break. He said he was going to send a different cat in. I need out of here. You can have, he hasn't restocked in months, so there's only 6 potions. You can have all 6 potions if you get me 3 months of awakening candy.
I mean, yeah, that's certainly a thing. I'm just wondering, like, is this a bad theme? Like, hey man, I need the stuff. You got to give me the stuff.
I need to get out of here.
If you get me 6 bags of stuff, I'll give you whatever you need. I just need it.
I just need the candy, man.
Can you give me?
I feel really bad for these cats.
Yeah.
Who are going to who are like they signed on for intelligence, and then with their intelligence comes servitude. It's
they're bound.
Perhaps not all awakened cats are like this. I think there's other ways that you would form a journey. Cats could also have other desires, like, oh, I'm awakened now. What I desperately want is something that this wizard can get me. It's the same. It's all, companion style story arcs. It should be something for both parties, and perhaps not just like a drug dealer and story
arc. That's the thing. Like if this object or this thing that I consume allows me to think, allows me to have thoughts, and I also know that if I don't consume this product, that I'm now going to sink below thought and then just be sort of unconscious. That is in a diabolical in a way, it is like, do we want to set that up? I mean, it creates like this interesting dilemma for these innocent creatures.
And so perhaps awakening candy is not the only solution to awakening.
Yes.
And just, you can buy awakening candy, which is like maybe something that's used in the industry or used in industries like servers that need assistance. Like, I think a really good example is like, I'm going to awaken Snuffles for a week because my mom's sick. So I'm going to go buy some awakening candy, and Snuffles is going to help me for a brief time.
You could just hire another server.
Or, okay.
But if it's a little kid or something like that, and, or whatever it is.
How about this thing? If you, because this will take away all the sort of negative, like Snuffles has self-awareness, is like, oh my gosh, I can think, and then all of a sudden, and now I'm back at the cat again. It's like, it's like if you give an awakening candy, it permanently awakens that creature. But awakening candy is super hard to get.
Okay.
So you can get this stuff, but if you can maybe, like, if you had 4 pieces on you, that would be really rare and very valuable. And whatever you give it to, whoever you give it to, it's permanent, which then it eliminates that sense of like, I need to re-up my fix. It's like, it's like, okay, I'll give it to Snuffles, boop, and now Snuffles is awake, and it will never lose that, which is then cool because
Yeah.
now Snuffles doesn't have to.
Snuffles better clean up after itself too.
Yeah. You see all this stuff I've been doing for you, Snuffles? It's like, oh, yeah, you poured my food and you cleaned my box. And
All right, we'll get rid of the drug dealer.
get rid of
Good call.
I just think of my cat Pippin, and I would feel so bad. Like, I'm sorry, Pippin.
Sorry, Pippa. Gotta let your prescription lapse.
Yeah.
Bump.
Oh man.
Yeah. Poor Pip.
Or Pip. All right, I think that's a good call. But I think what we can still jump into here is I feel like we have a general idea of how awakening might occur. It might occur naturally, maybe through awakening candy, which is probably permanent to stop any drug dealing. But there also might be, semi-permanent ones like animals in the domain of a great nature spirit of some sort.
Yeah, that's cool.
Or maybe like bathing an animal in a certain spring or something like that can bring semi-permanence. I think there's a bunch of ways. And I think maybe we detail some of that in the secondary book, even for just a page.
And I think even Ari, you were bringing up earlier with Mononoke and the idea that, if the energy of the elder spirit fades away, then these sentient animals that live on the mountain that are affected, I like the idea that they start to return. Like that's a cool iteration of that I think is neat story for a story reason. Like as this spirit fades, the animals kind of return to a sort of a more just like their
mundane
nature.
quality to them. Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. I think we should keep that.
You know what it almost it almost reminds me of the Studio Ghibli that is not named, that we shall not name. Sorry for anyone. The Pompoko.
Yeah.
Which is a movie. I actually really like the movie.
I like Pompoko.
It's
Pompoko's
just
great.
not the one you normally talk about for obvious reasons. It's the Studio Ghibli you watch in dark corners of your room without other people knowing.
But yeah, the idea that there's a conclave of sentient cats, that are all kind of like talking and these, tanukis.
But I also feel like something that's interesting is there's that interaction, and I might be misremembering this, so sorry. But I feel like there's an interaction between the awakened animals and non-awakened animals. And I think that's really interesting too.
Yeah.
Because like what happens when an awakened cat who's wandering around this domain, or like let's say a deer or something an awakened cat meets a deer, and it's like, what are you doing? Like it tries talking, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you eating my stuff? And the deer like turns, goes back to eating the berries. Like, I just picked all of those, buddy. Get out of here.
It's Meowth talking to any other Pokemon.
Exactly. Now there's like this interaction where it's like, there's frustration between a standard animal and an awakened animal that's occurring in nature, not in like the city, which I think is really interesting.
And like awakened animals gathering together and being like, hey, like maybe we can help our unawakened brethren, like bringing food to them, or, like animals that kind of don't get it. They're like, hey, you should be doing this. And
I went right to awakened animals forming raiding parties.
Yeah.
And attacking villages.
An organization or a small faction of awakened animals that their goal is to awaken other animals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty good.
It becomes like the bodhisattva of the dogs or something like that. It's like, we will, bring all dogs into this new realm of understanding.
Talking about NPCs that know spells. What if they know seeming? Like one of the cats can cast seeming.
Oh man.
And so they cast which makes you have an illusionary, it's like disguised self, but for groups of people. And so you could imagine like 6 badgers, or like 2 badgers, a cat, a dog, a cow, and a deer like walking into town like, we're humans.
Or all on the train at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe there's this, this one. Here we go with a farm, but there's this one farm and an Obojima where there's awakened cow that has sort of worked with the farmer to create this like new form of farm where the cows are like have this crazy good treatment, and their barns are special, and they're trying to like then now spread that around the rest of the island.
All right.
Yeah, you know, like
I can
cows
see that.
advocating for their environments, right?
Cow rights, man.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it does get animal farmy, right?
Yeah.
It does get to like, okay, what happens when, you know, beasts of burden become sentient? You know?
And I feel like because of spirits, they're just normal. Like they would, like I don't think a Obojiman would be shocked if a boar who walked like a boar, talked like a boar,
Walk like a boar.
walked, like he came into the shop and was like, I need 16 truffles. Like right now. And they'd be like, okay, that's 2, you know, sea petals.
Ooh,
and
I don't have any money.
He's like, I don't have money, but I can eat all the trash in the back of your, you know, behind your shop. And I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
And like, I feel like that wouldn't be weird.
Yeah,
I feel
no.
like a sentient, awakened animal. I need to get sentient out of my mind. Awakened animal would assimilate into society in some capacity. Like maybe most of them live out in the world, but it wouldn't if they wanted, if they had chosen to live in Yadaman or a village or something, they might even have a shop or something like, you know, like they'd be limited to what they can achieve.
Yeah.
But I don't hate the idea that a awakened truffle pig in Okiri village was so good at finding the local mushrooms that it traded a bunch of mushrooms to have one of the woodcutters build it a shop, and now it sells these mushrooms out of its shop and lives in the shop, and like that.
Yeah.
That's a cool idea to me. And it's not a spirit; it's just an animal that has high intelligence.
What if, whenever an animal becomes awakened,
An angel gets its wings.
it's transactional, and a humanoid becomes of animal intelligence, and there is a grove somewhere on the island filled with the wild people.
Just like proto-humans. Yeah. I think, like having had this discussion, it's like as a DM, when you're dealing with awakened animals, you have to stay with the fairy tale, whimsical, innocent vibe of Obojima.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can go into Animal Farm really fast,
Yeah.
and it can get like kind of like, ooh, it becomes metaphorical of sort of like all this kind of hardcore, not feel good stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to keep it Beatrix Potter, like little Tom Kitten, and he's popping his buttons off his vest, and Jemima Puddle Duck, it's like these like whimsical, fun, cartoony, where whether you're a regular cat or an awakened cat, it's just fun and happy, and you're living your life and you're doing cool stuff.
I think it. Oh, all right. Sounds like you got some.
No, it's also just we're gonna have to find a way to. I don't know if we have to, but like, is it worth finding a line between if I see an awakened cat, because we know that companion spirits can also come in the form of cats.
Yeah.
Right. So what is that distinguishing feature? And is there too much kind of world building overlap between those two things conceptually? I mean, obviously an awakened animal is not necessarily small. You could have an awakened bear. You can have, it doesn't necessarily do that. But like, I guess, what is that delineator between those two things conceptually? Yeah.
What an interaction between an awakened cat and a spirit that's taken on the form of a cat is interesting, and I'm not sure exactly.
Does like the awakened cat like see the spirit? It's like something's weird about that one.
Not a cat.
You don't smell like me.
Yeah. There's something.
Because
something is amiss.
Because an awakened cat will also have memory of maybe not being awakened.
As
and
a
so
kitten,
it has its cat instincts, and that sort of like, it's like when you're looking at your cat and your cat then all of a sudden just like sees into the spirit world, and you're like, what are you looking at, buddy? Like there, maybe the cat as an animal has instincts and senses, and
all awakened cats would be murderers. Just like
it's like, now I have the intelligence to act out.
I have cunning.
My brutal plan to destroy everything.
I really love the idea of an awakened cat and a spirit cat both walking, And as they leap off the top of a roof, the awakened cat lands with cat's grace, and the spirit like poof, lands on its side and it's like, my back. Because although it looks like a cat, it is still just a spirit with spirit tendencies. It doesn't have the same skill sets.
Yeah.
And so it's like there is physically they look the same, but there are wide. One of them's voiced by Billy Crystal, the other one is not. There is a difference. And I love that. I think it'd also be interesting to see the two cats butting up against each other and the spirit being like, yeah, get out of here, you mangy thing. And it's like, hey, I'm not mangy, you're mangy. And like, oh, we're both talking at each other, so that's already abnormal. The spirit might be used to being the smartest one in the room and like shooing off other cats and looking down at them and like, or something. I think that's interesting. I think the dynamics between
Here's something I don't remember from what ended up in the book. I know we've gone through multiple iterations, but what is the intelligence level of a companion spirit? That I don't remember.
I don't recall either. I believe it's 10. But let me look.
Okay.
Yeah, average human intelligence.
Okay, so it's not like animal level of intelligence with a spirit.
No,
okay,
I don't
it's
think
still so. Okay, you can communicate with them.
I'll quadruple check right now. But so I think that's interesting where they kind of take up the same space, but there might be some tension between them, or maybe they love each other. I don't know, but like I think there is definitely we look the same, but we're not the same.
Well, I mean, it could be too, like, like just cats in general. Like you can have there are cats that don't like any other cats.
Right.
Period. And then there are cats that like, I like some cats and not other cats. And then there are cats that just like, I like everything that comes in the room. Like
just want to cuddle.
Yeah. Just want to cuddle, man. Everybody's my pal. So it could vary.
I almost, and we don't have enough time to talk about it, but I almost want to have an episode on why are cats so important in Obojima?
Because they're awesome.
The end. That was easy.
All right, cool. Yeah.
Wrap that one up.
Because we do utilize that motif, or not the motif, but the cat quite a bit. There's the cat of procedures. Size, we put cats on top of vending machines.
Yep.
Obojima specifically has some sort of affinity for feline creatures. So that's something interesting to talk about maybe in a future episode, why they're so potentially important.
They're nature's finest form.
Okay.
The ultimate hunter.
I have
inscrutable intellect.
Yeah, that's right.
Here's something that's interesting.
Sphinx-like.
All of the companion spirits have an 8 intelligence. So they're slightly
so
below the average human. So if we at an awakened animal, which gets to 10, would actually be slightly smarter than the spirit. So the spirit might be like, "Get out of here," and the cat's like, "What are you talking about?" Like there's, I mean, they're not. It's not so indifferent that technical terms they're essentially the same, but it is interesting. They're an awakened cat's slightly smarter than a spirit. That's
awakened cat would be able to trick, like a spirit cat. So it would have the edge. It would be able to use its feline wiles to hey, look over there and what
and hit it with a hammer.
It just becomes like the old Warner Brothers cartoons.
Well, I about halfway through this episode, I said we're switching topics and I'm going to talk about vending machines. Did not happen at all. So we will talk about vending machines another time.
Oh, that's right. We didn't even talk about that. We talked about the cats on the vending machine.
The cats. We got distracted by the cats again. I think we made good choices on shifting away. And I also think the discussion of how awakened animals, and awakened and spirits who take on bestial forms. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, and just sort of like in an Obojima story, like how to handle that kind of keep it fairy tale and
And I think I think when telling an Obojima story, the way to do it is just be fluid with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes they're beasts, sometimes they're spirits. They kind of work in the same space. Both of them exist, and that's okay. It's kind of like dogs and wolves are the same thing, but not. They serve different purposes in stories.
And you might find as a DM that your group really is into the concept of spirits.
Yeah.
And if you want to take anything that says awakened and just say, this is instead a spirit, do that.
Yep.
Do what's best for your table.
Yeah.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, with all that being said, I think we're going to cut this podcast episode. Thank you so much for joining us. This was the Obojima Podcast. You can catch us on Spotify and Apple Music and Amazon Music and YouTube. You can watch other videos on YouTube. We're going to be coming out with new stuff. Very cool. Catch us on Discord and Instagram and TikTok and all of that other fun stuff. And we will catch you all next time. This was Adam and Ari, and I'm Jeremiah. And we were the writers, and we were writing.
And speaking.
All right. See ya.
See ya.